All right, guys, welcome to the last lecture for Unit 6. Remember, on Thursday, you will have your test. Your vocab is due. It should be handwritten. Okay, so remember that. This is your last PowerPoint for the unit, though. All right, we'll talk about John F. Kennedy, or JFK, and the Cold War. Okay, so election of 1960 happens. You have JFK, who is a Democrat, versus Richard Nixon, who is the Republican. This is the first televised debate. This is the first time that two presidents debating have ever been put on TV. It's extremely important because this is going to shape or impact the way people vote. Kennedy is a charismatic or very likable person who much of the country, aspires to be like. He wins in a very close election. One thing he does is promise action to confront communism. Not wait on it, but confront it head on. Okay? Now, you have a crisis over Cuba. 1959, communist Fidel Castro seizes power in Cuba. Most of you guys have heard of him. And Cuba is important because it is just 90 miles from the U.S. So this is going to be a major thorn in the side of Washington. We're going to constantly have to worry about them. Castro is this one right here, by the way. All right. They're going to seize American businesses. Many Cubans will go into exile in the United States. Okay, what that means is Cuba is seizing American businesses that are in Cuba, and a lot of those Cubans are going to leave because they do not want to be underneath the rule of Castro. Castro is eventually going to be aided or helped by the Soviet Union, which should make sense because they're not only communists, but they're 90 miles from America, so that's going to be a big benefit to Russia or the Soviet Union. Now, the Bay of Pigs is there's a CIA plot. We told you about the CIA and their operations and their discretion or secretiveness, but they're going to plot to remove Castro from leadership, from power. Eisenhower, before JFK, authorizes a military invasion by a Cuban exile army backed by the CIA. What that means is Eisenhower approves an army made specifically of Cuban exiles and Cuban soldiers to go back and invade Cuba and try to take over. The CIA is going to back them or support them, and before it is approved by Eisenhower, JFK will take office. JFK will approve it. Now, the exile army will land at an area called the Bay of Pigs, and the Cubans will rapidly beat those exile Cuban forces. Okay, and this is a humiliating loss for the United States and for JFK, and it will drive Castro further away from Americans and further into the arms and the embrace of the Soviet Union. Okay, so now the Soviets and the Cubans are going to be even more friendly because of this issue. Now, the Berlin Wall, you've seen it, we've talked about it. Berlin is a divided city. It's divided between the U.S. and the Soviets. Many people are fleeing into the west from the Soviet sector. They want to be away from the Soviet controlled side. Soviets demand the U.S. leave Berlin. JFK refuses. On August of 1961, the Soviets will construct the Berlin Wall. This is to keep East Germans from leaving because East Germans are flocking as much as they can to the western side, away from the Soviets. This will further aggravate tensions between the United States and the Soviet Union, and that wall will become a symbol of oppressiveness of communists. Okay, those communists, they're so evil that when the people try to flee, they literally build a wall to keep them from each other. Now, this wall was built, and in reality, like families that were on opposite sides of the wall will now no longer be able to see each other. That wall was built, and people weren't allowed to move. They weren't allowed to cross. So anyone, if you had friends, if you had family on the other side of the wall, you'd have to wait a very long time to see them. And now you see here an East German soldier, Conrad Schumann, defects into West Berlin. Like even the soldiers ran away. Okay, this is extremely important. So we will continue our discussion on the Berlin Wall later. All right, now the Cuban Missile Crisis. We discussed this a bit. After the Bay of Pigs, Castro fears that we're going to intervene again. So here in the Soviets have a secret placement of Soviet nukes. Excuse me. All right, sorry about that. Hopefully Dana gets her phone call because they interrupted my notes. Okay. October of 1962, U.S. spy planes will discover the missiles that were secretly hidden in Cuba. JFK demands removal and sets up a blockade. He surrounds Cuba with ships. This is an example of brinkmanship as Khrushchev tests Kennedy. Remember, brinksmanship is where we go almost to the brink of war. We will go to war almost to basically avoid war. The missiles are ultimately or later removed by the Soviets if we promise to not invade Cuba, okay? Because they cannot get supplies in or out. They actually have the missiles. They don't have the equipment to launch the missiles. They have to get that in by ship, which means the missiles there are useless, and you can't get them in by ship because there is a blockade. So really the missiles are useless, and if we invade, we not only take Cuba, but we could take the missiles as well. So the Soviets promise they will not, they will remove those missiles as long as we do not invade. Okay. This is a picture of JFK and Khrushchev here. Now your last slide, cooling the Cold War. Following the Cuban Missile Crisis, both Kennedy and Khrushchev looked to ease tensions because we are an inch from war. So they set up a hotline for direct communication. All right, this phone, you pick this phone up, it's red because red means what? Communist, that's right. As soon as you pick this red phone up and hit your button, it is going to go straight to the Russian president. They signed the Limited Test Ban Treaty to ban above-the-ground nuclear testing, which will place all nukes underground, okay? All right, and that is it.